Even though I love cute and girly games and believe wholeheartedly they should be platformed and studied and discussed and taken seriously, I can't exactly say they've done a great job at being diverse. It's kind of embarrassing that every time a new fashion game or farming sim or dating sim comes out, Black reviewers and Let's Players have to see what they can do with the pathetically limited hair and skin options in the character customizer, when as a game developer, I know how little effort it would have taken the dev team to add some in.
I resonate so strongly with just being able to load up a game and not struggle with the 2 or 3 options that we have, and there's just sheer disappointment when you just definitely see that those are the only options. And then let's not forget the the ashy skin tones.
Oh my god.
Get that baby some lotion, please.
I cannot stress enough the importance of an undertone. I need you to put an undertone to these.
Okay, so it seems there's not like a great, I feel like we went through all of them, right? Yeah, there's not like a great curly option.
To me, it's just like, why can't I have my hairstyle at the start? Why can't there be one curly hair? This is like the curliest we can go. Like a short little wavy one. To me, that's not like curly, you know what I mean?
There are so many interesting ways that femininity is expressed around the world, but girly games so far have really only prioritized the Eurocentric perspective. It's pink and sparkly and blonde and skinny. But even in spite of their flaws, I think it's amazing that so many of girly games' greatest champions have been Black women. While the majority of gamers have rejected anything that challenged the perceived masculinity of the space, Black women were some of the first players to recognize the value of games that explore feminine identity and beauty, and mechanics about softness and care. They were some of the first people who built communities around girly games. They made mods to improve character and avatar diversity, and they wrote reviews and shared resources so anybody could do it. And of course, they were some of the first to actually criticize girly games. Not from a place of dismissal or, like crude locker room humor, but real critical analysis. And I get so excited when anyone earnestly articulates the ways in which girly games can improve. These women have been nurturing the cute game space for years. They are a part of its history, and basically we should learn their names. To cover the entire history of Black women in girly games is a huge undertaking, which I could not possibly do justice to. But for today, I would simply love to introduce you to the work of the women who specifically influenced me. This is going to be organized somewhat chronologically, so we're gonna start by going back a decade to when I was first getting started in games and all the people who I was being introduced to, and then we're gonna work our way to the present with all the girlies who are doing new stuff that I'm really excited about in the future. I love talking about video game history. Okay, let's go. Najabi is the creator of Blurdy Otome. In the 2000s, Japan was way ahead of the West when it came to making games by and for women. There's not enough time to cover that in this video, but these were usually under the label of Otome games. The problem was it was really hard to get decent information about these games in English-speaking countries like the United States, and the genre stayed pretty niche for a while. But in 2015, Najabi started writing reviews on Otome games she had played on Tumblr, and in the 11 years since, that blog has grown into a huge multimedia review site that is still running today. I really cannot emphasize enough how completely barren the girly game space was just like a decade ago. I feel like I can't remember, but something happened around that time that provoked a lot of open hostility and violence towards women in games. Is that ringing a bell to anybody? Anyway, there were literally only 3 or 4 websites on the good internet that felt like a dedicated space to talk about these games that I loved, and one of them was the Blurdy Otome. Reading her site, it sort of dawned on me, you can't really niche down much further than a Black nerdy woman who has a passion for Japanese narrative romance games, but her writing still found an audience. You actually don't have to wait for the space to exist so you can indulge in the passion. And I was like, well, shit, I want to do that too. I want to talk about cute games, history, design, and culture, so why don't I just do it? And that little thread of inspiration was literally the first time I ever thought of the Cute Games Club. I'm being dead serious, you guys. Najabi is directly responsible for the creation of this channel. The Blurdy Otome is on YouTube. She's on Twitch. She's doing streams. She's putting out videos. She's running the website. She's writing reviews and walkthroughs. And actually right now, a lot of otome visual novel developers are sending their games to Naja because she is a tastemaker. And in 2019, she introduced a regular feature called Melanin Monday, highlighting creators and games with Black and diverse characters. I truly have no idea how she gets all of this work done. If you guys are expecting that level of dedication from me, like I am so sorry to disappoint you. I do not have it in me. I really don't. But throughout it all, for a decade, Naja B has been and is staying so horny for those anime boys. And I love that. So much of what I'm going to tell you about Daisy Ein is from my own memory. And we'll talk about why that is in a moment. But since I don't have as many primary sources for this, just, take everything I say with a grain of salt. Back in 2017, thanks to how powerful our phones were getting, mobile games were starting to get really, really hot. So companies were rushing to the space. But it was still pretty unusual for like a good mobile game, like a hit mobile game, to be made by an individual or a small team. But Daisy Ein and her partner Zap Layden collaborated together to make their first game, Tiny Bird Garden, which was a bird-themed pet sim. If you never played it, it was really similar to like Neko Atsume. So you have to keep in mind, this was not just like a one-and-done standalone release, okay? This was going to be a live service mobile game. So it had a story mode, it had a lot of content, and they were designing it to get regular seasonal updates. And that's incredibly ambitious, even for like a mid-sized team. But this was just 2 people, and again, this was like literally their first game. Daisy Ein did the art. She wrote and produced all of the music because she was also a musician. She did the game design, she wrote some of the story, and she ran all of the promotion for the game. I don't know who Zap was, what Zap was doing, but Daisy Ein was the one doing like all the interviews and stuff. So she was one of the first indie devs I was exposed to making an unapologetically cute game in 2017. It was very ahead of its time. And by the way, did very well on the App Store. I think somebody said like 5,000 downloads in the first 2 weeks of its release. When you're battling against like hundreds of other like mobile companies who are also like making like these high quality production games, that is huge. Okay, for your first game, some indie developers would like dream of those numbers. The thing I like the most about Tiny Bird Garden is how different it felt from other mobile games at the time. There were like characters that you could talk to and kind of flirt with and get to know, and everything felt like really warm and handmade. You could tell the devs were clearly trying to like build a world, and they weren't just trying to like keep you hooked on, addictive loops and microtransactions and whatever bullshit everyone else was doing. And I remember like, I think I started noticing her from like her art on Twitter or something. She was a mermaid lover. Okay, you already know how I feel about that. But the thing that I remember, and I remember this, I really admired it. She had a thread that she would periodically do on Twitter. And she would be like, hey, if you're a smaller dev and you're trying to get your project out there, like post about it in the comments and we'll share it. We'll let other folks find out about it. And that's how I discovered a lot of like weird, silly indie devs on itch.io. Like the showcases that we're familiar with like didn't really exist yet. You would have like maybe something like Screenshot Saturday. I don't know. But like by and large, like indie exposure was like a very weird, difficult thing to do. And I remember that. And I remember being like, oh my God, that's so cool. More people should be doing that. So I stopped using Twitter in 2018. Good riddance. But several years later, I was like, oh, whatever happened to Tiny Bird Garden and Daisy Ein? I had read interviews where she had talked about making another game after Tiny Bird, and it seemed like she and her partner were like going all in on game dev. But in 2020, Tiny Bird Garden was pulled from the App Store. It wasn't on itch.io anymore. It used to be on itch.io, it's not. And they had a Steam page, and it just like, the game was there, but like there were no updates. Like it just kind of became kind of like a dead game. And both Daisy Ein and Zap Layden, well, we never heard from Zap, but like both Zap Layden and Daisy Ein, like they disappeared from the internet completely. Their socials, they would either close or they just like stopped updating them. They stopped paying for their domains. They dropped off the face of the planet. I have no idea why. Like they didn't even leave a post like, oh, we're closing, we're shutting this down, because like something like that, you would expect something like that. Like it felt really eerie. I don't know if I missed something. I don't know what happened to Daisy, and I wish I did. I wish I had told her how much her game meant to me when I was still starting as a game developer myself. And I guess that's why I'm talking about it here. Okay, if you were on Twitter during the mid to late 2010s, this avatar will be extremely familiar to you. Kat Small was up in the game industry's business. I remember she was sharing news, she was doing commentary, she was tweeting the good tweets. When I was on Twitter, I knew her more as, like, I swear to God, I thought she was a journalist because I would get a lot of the big gaming news from her account. But she was, as it turns out, a game dev, like primarily a game developer. And a lot of the things she was talking about and advocating for came from her personal experience as a game developer of color and the unique challenges that came with that. So it seems perfectly natural that Kat Small would go on to become the co-founder of the Game Devs of Color Expo. Yes, it's today probably the largest nonprofit organization giving resources to game devs of color. It started as a little hangout in New York City in 2016, and now they do scholarships, they do grants, they have a job board, they hold networking events, they do a full-on annual programming block where they like interview game developers, and it's like GDC. It's like a panel, you know, you share topics in game development to share resources. It's amazing. I found out about it during the pandemic when it went online. I think it used to only be an in-person event, but then it went online during the pandemic. And I think that really expanded their reach, which is incredible because, I mean, this is basically GDC without the $12,000 ticket or like however much it costs to fly to San Francisco right now. And they also save their recordings and they post them online. You know, GDC has like recordings that they like put on their vault. You still have to pay like a shit ton of money to see most of the videos, and they're very selective about what they release to the public. But GDoc Expo, to my knowledge, posts everything. So right now, if you have an internet connection, you can get years of learning and insight directly from game developers of color completely for free. You can watch the entire backlog. I mean, like, are you fucking kidding me? And that's all thanks to Kat Small. I mean, like, you know, obviously it's a team effort. Like, a lot of people helped build it from where it was, but like it had to start somewhere, and it started with Kat Small, which I think is really cool. So shout out to Kat Small. Shout out to the GDoc Expo that she helped to build. This is the one! I'm gonna get so excited. I can't wait. Okay, I have to adjust the levels because I'm getting so loud talking about Raymona. Okay, so in 2008, Paramount Digital Entertainment, they were going to turn 3 of their popular movies into casual games, I think for the DS. And they partnered with Legacy Entertainment, and the 3 movies that they were going to turn into games were Clueless, Mean Girls, and Pretty in Pink. I know a lot of people don't care about Pretty in Pink, but like I would have genuinely loved a Pretty in Pink video game. But after a series of messy development cycles and company buyouts and stalling and blah 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 and bullshit, none of the 3 announced games ever made it to release. The only thing that was left to even prove that these games had existed in the first place were like some press releases and some clips of demo footage. Of course, since these were girly games meant for a casual audience, nobody was particularly worried about their fate. As far as the public were concerned, giving them the title of lost media was too high a distinction. But they were lost media, okay? And if you are a piece of girly lost media hiding anywhere in the world, I got bad news for you, bitch. Raymona just woke up through her extensive personal research and inquiry. By 2022, she was able to gain access to an archive, not 1, but 2 of the lost Paramount games. Because of Raymona, we now have public footage of the Clueless and Mean Girls DS games. And we've been able to like trace now because of that footage. There was like mini games in the Clueless game that ended up going into a DS release. It was fashion designer style icon. So we can trace. We would never have known this, but basically we know that Clueless was turned into another game. Imagine the power of knowing, because okay, Raymona is not like an academic or a journalist. Like she does not have any special credentials, but she just like cared. She just like decided to do it. Like she could, because she could do it, anybody could do it. So she made documentaries about her process of like looking for this lost media, and they're on YouTube, and they've done very well, which I really like because it proves that there's a broader interest in girly game history. And her videos look amazing because she's an excellent filmmaker, by the way. Look at that, what an incredibly cute and nostalgic video style. I wonder if it artistically influenced anyone we know. So you find Clueless, right? You find Mean Girls, you find these 2 previously thought lost DS games, and you make an incredible video about it. Anyone else at this point would be like, that was a career high, right? Anyone else at this point could say, that was a ton of research and filming and editing, and it was a lot of work, and honestly, I don't want to do it again. And we would understand. That would make sense. We'd be like, thank you for your contribution. You are feel free to move on to the next chapter of your life. Oh, but what's that? Raymona kept looking for girly lost media. Raymona went on to single-handedly uncover the lost American pilot for Sailor Moon that had been unsuccessfully sought by the internet for decades. Raymona found the motherfucking holy grail of lost media. Sometimes I like to think of myself, you know, as an amateur cute games historian. The truth is, I am not worthy to breathe the same air that she breathes. My roommates are gonna kill me. A lot of you guys already know about Justinia Saunders because if you're into cute and girly games, well, you know about Jellyfish Parade. This studio often comes up when discussing some of the better visual novel creators in the West. Outside of the quality of games and the story and art, Jellyfish Parade stands out for being one of the few studios with games where you can play as a girly of color romancing hotties of color. Justinia Saunders is the founder. She is the lead programmer and she writes all of the stories. You know, she's amazing. I'm actually kind of late to the hype train because she's been making stuff apparently since 2017. The only reason I happen to know about her is, well, what do you think? Okay, she's making a mermaid game. Ocean Pearls, Kissed by the Sea, where you can potentially date and romance some sexy fishmen. And that was supposed to have released in 2020, but haven't heard a lot of updates left. You know, I've been waiting 6 years for that game to come out. You know, girl to girl, Justinia, girl to girl, dev to dev. You know, I know life gets crazy. But I would just like to use my platform now to respectfully ask, when can I make out with a fishman, please? I have screenshots of XOXO Academy, by the way. Just putting that out there. You know, and if that may or may not influence your future decision making in the games that you make, potentially if like very soon in the near future I could kiss a merman or two. You know, I'm just putting that information out there. That's all. Nina Gabriella isn't just another girly covering cute and cozy games, okay? I'm telling you right now, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, there isn't a single person on the internet who knows more about fashion games than this diva. I'm pretty sure she's played them all. And I'm not even talking about like the big releases, Style Savvy, Fashion Dreamer, or whatever. No, there are videos on her channel covering the most weird, niche, obscure fashion games that like truly nobody else has heard of. And it is glorious. And as if that wasn't enough, she's also bringing in commentary that is especially valuable thanks to her very specific background as someone who works in the fashion industry, because she's literally also a model. Guys, she's literally also a model. And her videos are funny and entertaining and like, what do we do to deserve this treasure? I can't. From the bits and pieces that I have gathered from her Instagram, it seems like Nina was studying fashion advertising and was already actively working as a model and cosplayer when in 2022, she got this opportunity to study abroad in Japan. I'm also pretty sure, I'm not 100%, but I get the impression that she literally learned Japanese like just before this trip. As someone who can barely do like one thing of Duolingo a day, it's like insane to watch someone be like, let me just learn conversational Japanese before I pack. Like, while in Japan and in the several future trips she's made, she's learning everything she can about the Japanese fashion industry. And shortly after that first trip, Nina starts sharing reviews on YouTube about all the interesting and like niche fashion video games that never get ported to English. It's thanks to her that we know the provenance of a lot of the imagined fashion games, which if you don't know are like usually ported from like all around the world. It's thanks to her that we have a history of this really weird French PC game called Project Fashion, which might have the only Black protagonist in a fashion game ever, which I think is really interesting. And yes, it is also thanks to her that we know about weird Japanese fashion games like JS Girl Doki Doki Model Challenge, which is about, you know, child modeling. I can't imagine why that didn't make it over. Like I mentioned before in the Blurdy of Otome section, a significant portion of the world's girly games, including those about fashion, are made in Japan. Even if those games are extremely successful, unless a publisher decides that it's worth localizing to the West, most of us are never gonna see these titles, let alone get your hands on them and play them and understand how they work, which is kind of important if you're someone who wants to make a fashion game. So our knowledge is dependent entirely on someone who knows English and Japanese and cares enough to play them and cares enough to tell us about them. And Nina Gabriella happens to be one of the amazingly talented, dedicated people who does all of that. So if you love fashion games, and I know you love fashion games, do yourself a favor, sub to her channel. Let's get those numbers up because actually below 20K is like unfathomably criminal. When I first posted about making this video, a lot of people in my comments were like, you absolutely need to include SimSiga, and I couldn't agree more, babe. So Junie, aka SimSiga, is the video essayist and creator of the SimSiga channel, and quite frankly, it's crazy I haven't brought her up before because she is constantly saying things that I just want to quote all the time. It is so hard to find really good quality video game analysis on YouTube, especially around cozy games, which are the focus of so many of SimSiga's videos. If you call your game cozy or wholesome or casual, there are certain people who would prefer to dismiss it altogether as like shovelware than think about it critically for 2 seconds. And this has been a recurring pattern throughout games history towards any game with a majority audience of women, but I digress. SimSiga is exceptional because she talks about cozy games with a deep understanding of what they are. She clearly plays these games and loves them, and she, even without being a developer herself, completely understands the industry, the ecosystem of the industry, and what we should be paying attention to. Personally, I really love her coverage of the ongoing saga of what's been going on with The Sims. And I feel really bad saying that because she has several times been being like, I don't want to talk about The Sims. This is my last time talking about The Sims. And then some new bullshit happens and she has to make a new video. So I am really sorry about that, girl, but please know that I love your coverage. I am tuned in every time. The Sims has historically had a huge Black player base and modding community. And there's been now several years of tension between Sims players and creators and the questionable business decisions of EA, which right now is the Sims parent company. I mean, we have crazy celebrity brand deals, microtransactions, AI drama, the Saudi government gets involved at one point. This is a really big story just around one game. And I feel like if you weren't a Sims super fan, you would never hear about it, right? But thanks to SimSiga, I'm locked in. I'm at the edge of my seat. I eat up every video that she puts out. I also really love how the discussions in her videos are related to the intersection of race and gender. It's really refreshing, right? Intersectionality is just not something that we almost ever cover in the game industry. So I'm really excited when somebody's talking about it. What I don't understand, right, is so she's releasing these amazing, well-researched and insightful videos every other week. These videos are getting tens of thousands of views, but that number right there is as low as it is. That's so crazy. I feel like something could be done about that. These are the names of the girlies who have been my personal influencers from video game history. They have already done so much to advance and create the video game industry that I really want to be in. But the best part is they're still alive. I mean, history is still being made. These contributions are still happening, which is really exciting. And there are so many other women that I really, really wanted to talk about, but the script for this video was starting to get a couple hours long. But what I ended up doing was creating a playlist called Black Women in Girly Games. It features some great videos already from the people who I talked about today, but it also includes a bunch of other girlies who you should absolutely know about. At time of recording, there is 12 hours of content on this thing, so I'm gonna link it in the description. And the playlist is also going to live on my channel page for a while as well. This playlist has tutorials, discussions, analysis, reviews, fun, silly stuff. If you put this playlist on while you're working, while you're chilling, while you're driving, keep your eyes on the road, but while you're driving, if you wanna listen to it, you are gonna learn so much about the history of girly games, and you're gonna meet probably your next favorite creator on this playlist. I am certain of it. Now, before this video ends, there is one more really important thing that we need to discuss, and that is the severe lack of game developers who are Black women. Black and Afro-Caribbean people represent between 3 to 5% of the industry. Of that 3 to 5%, only a fraction of those are Black women and gender minorities. And of that fraction, only a teeny tiny handful of people occupy roles that actually make decisions about games, like programmers, designers, and directors. And that number basically hasn't changed since we've been collecting demographic information. It hasn't changed even though other minority identities have started to grow in the industry, and it hasn't changed even though there are active DEI efforts trying to get that number up. We can't say this lack of game developers correlates to a lack of interest. It is impossible not to notice the discrepancy between the amount of Black women who play and enjoy girly games, who have so much to say, so much to contribute, so much they do contribute, but who never actually cross over into actual game development, which when we get right down to it, is the most effective way to shape games culture. A great example of this, right, is the character customization screens that don't have diverse skin and hair options so everybody can see themselves represented in their avatar. Developers at the top are always going to treat diversity like it's a choice, like it's an option, like it's a fun extra, unless there is somebody in that room who forces them to reconcile with the fact that diversity is not a fun extra, it's the default, it's reality. And not creating diverse options in characters and avatars is not a choice, it's a deliberate exclusion. Of the 3 women I mentioned before who have published a game, only one of them is still actively developing games today. Not only are there factors preventing the girlies from getting started in the game industry, there is something encouraging those who are already in the industry to leave. Something is wrong, and we need to stop pretending it isn't. The good news is, Black people have already identified the problem and have been telling us the solution for years for free. The bad news is, the industry has been approaching inclusion, I think, very differently than what has been explicitly asked for. This is a topic, obviously, with so much more to say, but it probably shouldn't be said by me. So in the description of this video, I have included links to every source I have ever known about and read that talks to Black developers and creators who are already here, who tell us in their own words what the industry needs to do to move forward. And there are also videos about the subject in the Black Women Talk Girly Games playlist, so you can check those out as well. The solutions in here are not back-breakingly difficult, by the way. It only takes a little empathy and effort to get that 3 to 5% to move a little bit higher. And now everybody also knows, by the way, that it takes very little extra effort so someone playing a girly game can have an avatar that looks like them. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I am trying to make a few videos this year highlighting different identities within the girly game space. And I want to give a huge shout out to everyone who commented on my original post and gave me advice when I was writing this piece. I tried to incorporate as many of your suggestions as possible. I'm very grateful. But if you are a Black woman, a femme, non-binary person who didn't see that original post, and there's an additional point that you wanted to make, like there's something in the video that you wanted to add, or you wanted to make a correction to something I said, or if you are a girly game developer and you want to share your work, put it in the comments. I'm gonna go through and periodically like pin some different things. Like if somebody makes a really great point, like obviously I really want everyone to hear from you directly. I'd also like to encourage everyone watching, if you were excited by the people and the stories and the ideas that you heard about today, don't leave a comment here. Make sure to go directly to the creators and the developers and the writers and let them know, you know, directly to them that you like them. Everyone wants to know that their work is appreciated. So if you leave a comment here, they won't be able to see it because, you know, they don't know who I am. They don't know about this video. So yeah, that is all for me. Thank you again so much for watching. And I have got to get going because I have got a lot more games and videos that I need to work on. So I will see you next time. Bye.